Well, hello everyone. Right, Gegis Squite, Miss Cabiniskis. Oh my goodness, I'm all fingers and thumbs today. Oki, Tansei, Tanishi, bonjour, hola, hello, and welcome to your incredible workshop. And this evening, please feel free to say hello in the chat in a way that speaks to you. And we're really, really grateful that each and every one of you is here with us as we move into this next episode of our free virtual workshops. Today is October 14th. Yes, it is. It's outdoor learning in parks and protected places. And we've got three fantastic presenters to share with you today. I got a chance at the weekend to spend some time in Mount Revelstoke National Park. So this is the traditional territory of the Snaist people, and this place also intersects right through the centre of Chukwuemekulu. And if we follow this river upstream, we end up in Tnacha territory. And the Okanagan Silk First Nation have also used this place for food, connection, and relationship since time immemorial. The blueberries were on their last legs. We had kind of like the first frost coming in, but they were so sweet from having that frost, and the water gets out and the sugar gets concentrated, and it was pretty special. And I'm very grateful to have relationship with this place. The land first teaches me so much, and then I'm incredibly grateful for the knowledge that have come from my Indigenous teachers and mentors here. Okay, friends, I know some of you are like, get on with it, but for those of us who are working hard or doing family life or have a bunch on the go and are feeling like you could just take a moment, I'm just going to encourage us to take three deep breaths together. We're going to let some leaves fall and we're going to take three deep breaths. And maybe like the leaves, you can kind of let go of anything that's been worrying you or that you don't need in this moment to be here present, learning from these beautiful people. And maybe you got some things heavy on your heart or your mind, and you can just say, you know what? I'm just here with my friends, learning about the outdoors for a minute, and nobody wants anything or needs anything from me in this moment except for me to be here. I appreciate y'all. I am really quickly going to talk about some of the amazing things that we're doing because we're so passionate about this work. 4 seasons of Indigenous learning. It's last chance to sign up. 4 seasons that move through decolonizing and truth and reconciliation education practices and joining once a month to learn from an incredible diversity of Indigenous speakers. It is a magical place to be. We also have a live American Sign Language interpretation for these webinars for the first time ever. So we really hope that you will join us. It's going to be really important. In a week's time, Monique Gray Smith is back to share with us about braiding sweetgrass for young adults, practical ways to implement and dive into this resource. It's a 4-part series. We hope you'll join us if you are interested in that. And myself and Lauren McLean are going to be doing social emotional learning strategies. I'm going to be really focusing on educator wellbeing, and Lauren's going to be talking about how you can implement that with students K to 8 and older, but that's the main range, and there'll be adaptations. So if you're feeling like you want to dive into something that will be good for the body, mind, spirit, please feel free. And then our incredible director of Indigenous Learning, Jenna Jasic, is going to be looking at how we can support Indigenous children's learning through nature-based learning. So if you have more Indigenous First Nations children that you're educating and you want to know how best to support them or embed those Indigenous ways of being, we'd invite you to join for us too. And last but not least, we have the Medicine of Stories. So Monique Gray Smith comes back as our facilitator and host to hold these beautiful storytellers to learn from them and how hearts and minds are influenced by life journeys, whether you're an educator or you just want to hear some people share really magical connections. This is a place to be. We start in November and they're one a month. I'm always grateful to have the wonderful Rachel with me here.
Hi. Oh, I'm always so grateful to be here. I'm the education coordinator with Take Me Outside. My name's Rachel. I usually am joining you from Treaty One territory, where I call home, which is the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Innuak, and Dakota, and also the national homeland of the Red River Métis. But tonight I'm actually joining you from Banff, Alberta, and I also wanted to acknowledge that I am currently in Treaty 7 territory, which is the home of the Stoney Nakoda, the Blackfoot, and the Tsuut'ina. And so before we get started tonight, I did just want to share a few exciting opportunities that are coming up with Take Me Outside. We've got our outdoor learning certification program. If you haven't heard about it yet, it's an asynchronous 30-hour course that is jam-packed with practical things to help you get started on your outdoor learning journey. We've had over 1,500 educators from around the world participate in this course. It's recently been updated to include and incorporate some of that initial feedback from the course. It's an awesome learning opportunity that is also available in English and French. And also, we've recently announced that we are launching come November. Registration is open, but the course will open in November. An early years educator version of this course that really focuses on how to integrate outdoor play and learning into your practice using effective strategies and resources for early childhood educators working with learners ages 0 to 6. So like I said, registration for that course is open, and it will be opening and starting at the beginning of November. And last but not least, Take Me Outside Day is next week. We will be kicking off the week next week. We've got a full week of virtual sessions, activities, resources, all going on, all free. You can register on our website to get in on all these virtual sessions, all the resources. There's tons of prizes. We've got Dr. David Suzuki joining us. It's all happening next week. So if you haven't signed up, I highly encourage you to sign up, and we hope to see you there. And I am going to pass it back to Jade.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to watch and participate. You have cultivated an incredible plethora of information. It's incredible. Okay, friends, we're just going to do a real quick poll here. I am interested in who is joining us today, and you'll see it on your screen. I'm wondering what kind of educator you are. There is a button for not strictly an educator, but someone who's just passionate. But if we're sharing information in any way, shape, or form in life, which we all do as humans in our relationships, we think you're all educators and you are important. And then we have a very heavily North American, or what some people call Turtle Island, weighted poll in terms of position. But there is one button left for the rest of the world. So if you've come from somewhere else, please feel free to share in the chat with us. And there's a few folks sharing in the chat as well. Quay, Terry, welcome. So nice to see you all. And hi, Robin from Chicago. Cool. All right, we can't get everyone in. 250 folks. We're creeping up. I'm just going to leave it open for 5 more seconds. 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to end that poll. I'm going to share those results. And I'm going to show that we have folks from all educator age groups. Fantastic. We've got some informal. Okay, every single educator concept we could think of is represented here. And we've got folks from all over North America. What an incredible opportunity. And I know if you've been to one of our workshops, I say this, I mean it every time, is that each and every one of you, by showing up here, by taking in these things, by taking them back to your classrooms or educational spaces, are making a difference in the world. And this is the hope, the energy, the drive, and the happiness that I need in my life to keep doing this work. So I'm incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. In that way, why don't I just do something real quick here? Is there a park or protected space, or maybe it's just a green space that holds a special meaning to you? And maybe we could just have a moment where we just share that in the chat. And we'll just get a waterfall of specialness, a waterfall of those special places. And we know that when places are special to us, then we take care of them, and we can embed that and share that with our young people as well. So I'm just going to let that lovely waterfall roll in as we keep on dilly-dallying through, because these are our partners. These are our people. These are the people who show up for this work, who might have resources or funding or expertise that's either topic specific or place specific. And each one of these people has committed also to working with us on truth and reconciliation, on uplifting marginalized voices in these spaces. And we are so grateful to each and every one of these organizations doing this fine work. And I just wanted to give a second to showcase them and say thank you so much. I'm loving this waterfall. I can't wait to have a little read back through there. There's some beautiful spaces and places that we get to inhabit. But today we're into the meat and potatoes, or if you don't eat meat, the meat loaf made from mushrooms and nuts, perhaps. It's outdoor learning in parks and protected spaces, and we have three phenomenal speakers for you. I'm going to introduce the first, and then I'll introduce the next two as we go. So first up is James Fester, educator, author, and advocate for experiential learning with 20 plus years experience in public, private, and online education. He currently works for PBL Works, helping teachers and leaders create engaging, learner-centered programs and collaborates with informal education organizations to reimagine their educational programs. He's a volunteer in parks, does a lot of work connected, and he's written this amazing book called The National Park Classroom, a guide to designing project-based learning adventures. I'm sure we're going to hear about it more. And James, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And hello, everyone, from wherever you might be coming. Uh, Long time listener, first time presenter. I'm super excited to be here, and I hope that I do a good job of kind of kicking us off here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have some slides to share with you just to keep myself kind of organized and everything else. I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and hopefully we have some participatory people in the chat that can go ahead and give me thumbs up if they can go ahead and see what I've got here in front of me. Looking good, Jade? Yep. All right. Thanks, Jacob.
Yes,
So,
well, I see your slides and your side thing. So if you could do hit slideshow at the top there and
oh
give
yeah,
us a little full
absolutely.
screeny,
How's that?
that's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, and again, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to make sure that I don't take too much time here. Because we have a lot of really great presenters today, and I just get to and I'm really grateful I get to kind of start us off. So again, my name is James Fester, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about some of the stuff that I learned while writing my book, The National Park Classroom, and sharing some of the teacher tools that can come from that come from our public land. So, like Jade said, I wear a lot of different hats, like I'm sure a lot of you. I'm a teacher, coach, and an author. Um, Right now, I'm actually working as a magnet school coordinator. I'm actually working at an aerospace elementary school. Didn't know there was such a thing until very recently, and I get to help put together a lot of really great STEM activities for kids that are interested in exploring space and opportunities in the aerospace and flight industry. So that's kind of my 9 to 5, but my 9 to 5, my 5 to 9 is that I'm really passionate about parks. I'm one of those very interesting educators that probably a lot of you can resonate with this experience that has a foot in each world. Like I have a foot in the formal education world where I've done a lot with brick and mortar schools, but I also have another foot in the informal world where I do a lot with outdoor schools and such. Like one of my first jobs was actually the assistant director of the Marin County Outdoor School in California in the U.S. Where I worked for many, many seasons, kind of helping students from all sorts of different walks of life connect with the outdoors. And of course, I've always been a big fan of the outdoors, like I know many of you are as well. And have recently, or not too recently, but I'm always kind of looking for interesting places to go. And national parks are one of my favorites. Um, Been a volunteer for a long time there. Was a facilitator for the Teacher Ranger Teacher Program in the United States National Park Service, and have also been to about 308 and counting, including quite a few amazing ones in Canada, because I know we have a lot of folks coming in from Canada. Tofino is beautiful, and anybody who says otherwise, I will fight you because it was a wonderful place, and I feel really honored that I got to go and check that out. Um, but what I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to try to do so in a fairly judicious way, is talk a little bit about education in the national parks. Of course, being somebody who's from the United States, I'm going to be talking about it from the perspective of the U.S. National Park System, but I know for a fact that a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing and the resources that you're going to get access to in the take-home version or the anchor doc that you're going to get access to. There are some things that you can check out if you are in Canada or somewhere nearby. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the legacy of national parks. I'm going to talk a little bit about the educational model I put up, and I'm just going to share a couple of fun resources that I think might be interesting for you to check out as well as a way to kind of create bridges and connect learners to the amazing opportunities they have outside their classroom. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to ask for a little bit of participation. hopefully there's somebody in this session that can tell me where in the world you might be able to find this particular construction. Anybody know what that is or where you might be able to find that? I'd love to see somebody throw it into the chat. Very close, Jackie. Getting closer. There it is. Okay, Heather's got it. I see a couple of other people have come up with it as well. That right there is indeed the Roosevelt Arch, which is the historical entrance to Yellowstone National Park, which is the first national park created in 1872. There are now a lot of different ways to get into that park, but this is kind of the original one. And at the top of that arch, it says, for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. Because when the national parks were first created, they were not necessarily revolutionary, but they were a different way of people interacting with land. That land had been set aside a lot previously in world history. Land had been set aside a lot or had been staked out and claimed for the very rich or the very privileged. The National Park Service, the mission at least, has always been um, to try to make available the very best places for the very most people. There are definitely times that we have done a better job of that than others, but that's always been the intent, and it's kind of the North Star that which we keep trying to compare our resources or compare our progress to. This picture right here is a little bit different. What you see here are actually some of the first, what I'm going to say, formal educators to ever great to be a part of the national park mission. So national parks have always been places of learning since time immemorial. The original caretakers and the original occupants of all of the lands that are national parks, regardless if you're in the United States or Canada, have always used them as places of learning. They've always used the resources and the places around them as a way of making sense and educating younger generations. The first time that formal education programs actually started occurring in national parks was actually kind of by happenstance. When national parks were first established, there was very little thought given to their protection. And so a lot of people came down and they started taking advantage of these places. They started ransacking them. They started taking advantage of them. And so eventually what happened was the Army, the US Army actually took it upon itself to go into these places and provide security. And if you're a soldier who's sitting 8 hours a day in front of a geyser or in front of a large canyon and you don't have a lot else to do, you do start to learn and read about these places. And they actually started to informally interact with guests as a way really just to pass time. And they eventually became that became the first the first formal education programs that went in these parks. Also, and because I know that I got a lot of friends from Canada in this particular session today, I want to, of course, make sure that I acknowledge the fact that without our Canadian friends, there would be no National Park Service, because it was actually the Canadian Park Service who first came up with the idea of creating a professional cadre of rangers to help manage their parks. It's a fun story that I actually talk about in my book, that when Canada started thinking about creating national parks, they wanted to kind of figure out or learn more about how to manage them. And what they did was they sent a group of people down to a couple of the parks we had here in the United States, and they were so atrociously run and so horribly managed that the Canadians ran back home and said, "We got to come up with something better than what the Americans are doing." And they created the first professional park service that the Americans quickly copied because we knew it was such a brilliant idea. So to all my Canadian brothers and sisters out there, thank you so much, because without you, we wouldn't have the amazing park system that we have today. So I've been a huge fan of parks for a long time. I've been very privileged to have grown up in a family that really prioritized outdoor learning. I can think of many times that I was drug out of my bed at the wee hours of the night by my parents so that they could take me on a ranger program or take me camping. And that's always been a part of my life. Excuse me. But also, additionally to that, I've also been a teacher and an educator for a long time. And I used to keep a lot of the things that I did in the classroom, I only did in the classroom. When I started getting involved with the National Park Service and volunteering on the weekends, what I started to see was a lot of the things that I did in one area could be of service in the other. So I started doing some of the things that I did with my my park programs, I brought those into the classroom, and some of the things that I did in the formal classroom, I brought to the parks. And what I came up with was a system, was really great results. The things that you see in national parks, the resources that are part of our public lands, should be brought into the classroom, and classroom teachers should be getting more involved in what's going on in our parks. And I kind of put together an informal group. It's called the National Park Classroom. If you're really interested, you are more than welcome to join. There's going to be a join link in the resource. It's an informal organization. We're just a bunch of teachers that are really passionate about public lands. And because we don't have a lot of money, we don't have like billionaire money where we can buy lands or help prop up programs, we use our expertise as teachers to do things like create curriculums, to host workshops, and to help connect other educators to public lands, because we really do believe that all students should have the opportunity to explore these lands. And I wrote a book about it as well. I'm going to shamelessly plug it here. You can check it out later if you're interested, but it's essentially all of the things that you need to know about the resources that public lands offer, if you are somebody who is passionate about that. Above all, you should be bringing your passions into the classroom. I think that's something that you're going to hear over and over again tonight as we kind of continue on. The model that I came up with was kind of my way of explaining to my classroom friends, my classroom the people that I know that are in the classroom, it's kind of my way of explaining to them what it is that educators that work outdoors do and how they do it, bring that into the classroom. And so I came up with 6 elements. Again, I'm going to share those resources with you because I know I don't have a ton of time here, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for our other speakers. But things like, in making sure that you, instead of just telling people what it is they need to learn, starting with questions. The idea of making sure that you are connecting everything that you're doing to a physical place or a location outside of the classroom. So don't just talk about, how erosion works, or don't just talk about the history and culture of the indigenous people. Make sure you're pointing on a map to places where people like your students can actually go, and they can actually see these things. One of the things that I learned very quickly is that unless you grow up in a family that is invested in the outdoors, you don't necessarily go there yourself until somebody makes you aware. It was really interesting that the research that I did showed me that the #1 barrier to getting students involved in and invested in their public lands, it actually wasn't money, and it wasn't even time, it was awareness. That students who don't understand that these places are for them, that national parks in Canada or national parks in the United States, that they're places that they are part owner of, unless somebody tells them that and then shows them what they can see or what they can do when they go there, they very rarely do. And so as educators, and I know a lot of us in this group are educators, a lot of us here can be the ones that remove that largest barrier or that biggest barrier to getting our students out into parks by simply making them aware of what's out there and how to get there. And that's really what these 6 elements are. Again, when you get that resource document, you can see that I've kind of created a very short kind of overview of each of the elements, and a way that you can borrow the best kind of practices and the best ideas from public lands and bring those into your classroom. One thing that I would love to, and yes, absolutely, I love that somebody talked about Richard Louv and his work as well, because it really is the truth that even small opportunities, small excursions out into green spaces can have huge benefits, both emotionally and academically. Um, Now, like I said, I'm from the United States. I actually live in Minnesota, so I'm not actually too far away from my Canadian friends here. And I just wanted to kind of show, because a lot of times when I talk to teachers, they don't realize the vast amount of resources that are available to them through their public lands. And this is the one that I'm showing here. This slide just shows the different things that are available through your public land, specifically the unit of the Park Service, or the public lands unit that's closest to where I live, which is the Mississippi National River and Recreation Area. It actually goes through both St. Paul and Minneapolis, the 2 largest urban centers in Minnesota, and it goes all the way from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans. It actually completely bisects the entire width of the United States. Um, and it's but the river actually begins here where I live. And What's interesting about all of these different educational offerings is that they are absolutely available in in a lot of other places as well. A lot of parks have online learning resources. They do virtual programs where they're actually Skype into your class and you can talk to rangers and have students ask questions. Of course, if you can get out there, you can also go on field trips. You can engage in professional development. I know Parks Canada has some amazing educational programs because I work with an organization called NAI, which has a membership all over North America, and there's amazing programs that you can engage in there. It just kind of takes a little bit of investigating. If you've ever had a student who's been incredibly excited about a very specific subject and you yourself don't have the expertise, try to find a park or a public land space that connects to that resource or could answer that question, because the people that work there are experts in their field and they might be able to fill in the gaps in the knowledge that you have. I always encourage teachers to reach out and ask, because what I know from my experience is a lot of these places want to make inroads into classrooms. They just don't know how, and they may need you to do that. So all of these things that I'm showing you on the screen, this is just one park unit of all of the parks that are available to people to access in North America. So the thing that I really hope that you leave from my little part of this presentation is that you go out and that you ask and investigate what opportunities for learning are around you and what resources you can draw on and bring into your classroom. I hope you'll take a look at that resource document that I've shared made available. It looks a little bit like this. My contact information is there as well, and I have a whole bunch of links that I think are very interesting and exciting to look at. So take some time to look at those things. And if you have any questions, I hope that you'll reach out. I would love to hear from you and hear more about your ideas and your what you do and to bring in outdoor spaces into your classroom as well. And I think that's all I'm going to go for, Jade. So hopefully that wasn't too much time. And thanks so much for letting me kick things off here today.
Thank you so much for sharing, James. And yeah, really important work. And I will share those links to that resource document in our recordings and resources page, friends. And for just to touch on something, someone had said, "Oh my goodness, do you have any resources to help underprivileged kids experience these parks and things?" I found links for Canada and the US, and I'm going to share that on the resource page as well. So there are programs specifically designed to support folks in accessing these. So watch that space and I'll have that for you.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Well, I am very, very excited to invite someone I'm really grateful to call a dear friend into this space. If you haven't met Jacob Rodenberg before, which would amaze me considering you've educated over 100,000 people and have written, the Bibles of outdoor learning as far as I'm concerned. But you are an award-winning educator. And you believe in the importance of connecting children to nature. And every time I see you present or host any kind of space that resonates out of you, you're the executive director of Camp Kawartha, which I believe is the largest outdoor education centre in Canada, if not Ontario, your state or province. And you are an instructor in environmental ed at Trent University. You've co-authored a new book called The Wild Path Home, which I got to read and is a really magical way of connecting through children's development to how they can learn environmentally about sustainability and grow as humans. And it is magical. And of course, you have the Big Book of Nature Activities and your book on sensory activities outdoors as well. But I'm very, very grateful that you're here again to share with us, Jacob. And I believe you've got some fun activities for us.
Thank you, Jade. What a nice introduction. That's lovely. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you can all see it. Thumbs up if you can.
I can see it, but if you could hit present. That's perfect. Lovely.
Yeah. Well, hello from Williams Treaty 20 in Peterborough, which is about an hour and a half northeast of Toronto. The traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Nojojiwanog, which is a lovely Anishinaabe word meaning the place at the foot of the rapids. And my house happens to be right next to a beautiful river called the Odenabe, the Otonabee, which is translated as a river that beats like a heart. Anyway, what I'm hoping is I can just throw a whole bunch of activities at folks, and by offering up a variety, maybe it will resonate with some of you. I don't know what you don't know, so I'll just start blurbing. One thing I really want to be clear about, though, is that when you take kids outside to a nearby nature area, whether it's a conservation area, a municipal park, whether it's a vacant lot, whatever green space is nearby, you have the opportunity of creating a meaningful relationship between that child and that space. And if we think about it in terms of a good human relationship, what does it take? Well, it takes going there over and over again. It takes hard work. It takes mindfulness, reciprocity, and if you can, even the opportunity to give back. We all occupy a space and we have three choices: make it worse, keep it the same, or make it better. If you go to that green space, what can you do to bring a little more nature back, if possible? Practicing reciprocity. So here we go. I'm just going to, as I said, showcase a bunch of different things that I love. One of them, here's a word you can share at a cocktail party called Cytheracism. What is a Cythericist? It's someone who recognizes this type of tree by the sound the wind makes through the branches. White pines whoosh, trembling aspens shudder. Oak trees, they moan and groan. Maybe you can come up with some adjectives. Just tune into the wind songs as the wind plucks the branches of trees. And to make that happen, you can make Jacob's handy patented noise catchers, sound catchers, just a piece of Bristol board. And this enhances your sense of hearing up to 10 times. And if you don't have Jacob's handy sound catchers, you have your own built-in ones, which are your cupped hands. Slip your cupped hands behind your ears. You'll be amazed at how much better you can hear. And tune in with your kids to the seasonal sounds that are there, like the sounds this time of year of the crickets. They striatulate, which means one part of their wing is a bit rough, the other part is a bit jagged, and when the two rub together, called a file and a scraper, they get a... You can actually figure out what the temperature is by counting the number of chirps within a given amount of time, and you can figure out the degrees in Celsius. So a snowy tree cricket, which happens to be a pretty ubiquitous tree cricket, maybe there's one near where you live, if you count the number of chirps in 8 seconds and add 5, you'll get the temperature in Celsius. How cool is that? And there's a formula for other things like field crickets and the common tricatid. You can harvest some mushrooms, just take the top and then plunk them down on a white piece of paper, overturn a glass, and give it 24 hours, and the spores will fall down and make a beautiful spore print. And so mycologists, people who study mushrooms, can identify the kind of mushroom by the type of spore print it leaves, different colors, beautiful. Or, you can ask kids the question, how is it that plants don't move and yet there are more of the same kind of plants further afield? Of course, the magic of seed dispersal. And just walk through a field with a pair of socks over your shoes, an old pair of socks, and just see what clings. Then collect different methods of dispersal, whether it is wind, whether it is going through the digestive tract, like berries, whether it's stick-ons. Seeds have a remarkable different ways of traveling. And it's fun to collect those in an egg carton. And by the way, you can use egg cartons for all kinds of things. You can use them for different textures. I've compiled a whole bunch of egg cartons, and I recommend you do the same thing. Oh, let's say milkweed, if it grows where you are, and the monarchs depend on milkweed. You can have milkweed seed races with kids on a calm day, where you start at a line and you disperse the milkweed seeds, and who can blow it over a line maybe 50 meters away? How fun is that? Or make stained glass windows by collecting leaves at this time of year, putting them between 2 pieces of wax paper, and you as the teacher, the parent, use an iron to rub and then stick it on a window, and it will literally glow. Those colors will spring to life. And they will reveal the things that the chlorophyll is hidden. The things like anthocyanins, which is the reds, and carotenoids, which are the orange, and xanthophylls, which are the yellows. As the chlorophyll dies off, these colors begin to be seen. And it's so beautiful. Oh, here's one I love. Take a plastic bag on a sunny day and put it around a deciduous tree branch and just leave it for a little while. And you'll see that trees, they transpire, they give off moisture. And forest can be 10 degrees cooler than the surrounding area simply because trees are continually transpiring. They're moistening the atmosphere. And trees, by the way, are such a wonderful metaphor. They do more good than harm. They give more than they take. Tree uptakes carbon, it gives out oxygen, provides food, it aerates the soil. Maybe ask the kids at the end of the day, what did you do that created more good than harm? What did you do that gave more than you took? Oh, a game of tree tag is a simple way to learn the different types of tree in your parks. Point out a cedar tree, a pine tree, a fir, a hemlock. And then kids are safe as long as they're touching the tree you call out. So you call out white pine, and as long as the kid is touching a branch or touching the trunk, they're safe. And that's a fun way just to get to know a few of the different kinds of trees. And the Anishinaabe, the traditional First Nations of this area, have a saying that when you know its name, it calls out to you. So that green smear that you see can resolve itself into different living beings, just like you remember your Uncle Ralph by his name to begin with, but there's a whole character and a story behind him. Look for tree faces. You'll be amazed at what you can find. Our brains are hardwired to see faces, and they'll be there in the trees. And when you do that, what you're inadvertently doing is you're animating the landscape. That means you're bringing it to life by giving it character and form. I love the work of Andy Goldsworthy. He's a British artist that goes out into the environment and simply using his hands, he creates the most beautiful and magical sculptures. And if you show kids some of his work, here's one on the left you see there where he's just taken leaves of different colors and laid them like a carpet in front of trees, and you can see the gradient of colors, where he breathes pieces of ice together in the wintertime. Show kids that, and you'll be amazed at what they'll come up with when they create their own nature sculptures. Now, some of you are probably saying, ooh, looks like they harvested some things. And yes, they did. And whether or not you want to harvest live things or just simply use dead things you find on the ground, you can still make lots of patterns. Here's an example of some work that kids have done. I do want to talk about the honorable harvest. This is a beautiful phrase that Robin Wall Kimmerer brought to life in her beautiful book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which is we humans were born to connect and interact with the natural world. It's not a museum. So if we can do it in a mindful way. So what she says is, don't take the first, don't take the last, only take a little bit. Always give thanks and always make sure that you try to practice reciprocity. For example, I'll carry milkweed seeds with me, and when we're done an art piece, I'll disperse the milkweed seeds as a way of giving back to the land. If you don't know pishing and you're out for a walk with kids, especially in the fall, in the winter, and the spring, if you make the sound psh, 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 I don't know if you can hear that, that is like a bird magnet. Do it for a couple of minutes, and you'll be impressed by how many birds come in. Chickadees especially, nuthatches, they're attracted to that sound. And scientists think it's an alarm call, and the birds come in just to see what's going on. Oh, you can make a snowflake catcher in the wintertime. All it is a piece of Bristol board. Keep it cold, black. And then on a day where it's not too windy, it's about -5 degrees Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, and it's snowing gently, catch a flake. And then use a magnifying glass and you'll see the beautiful crystalline structure. It might be a stellar dendrite, something that looks like a star. It might be a hexagonal plate. Anyway, beautiful forms. And if you go to snowcrystals.com, they have actual pictures of snowflakes that are just astonishing. And there's the website. And if you're in your natural area, take a recycling box, stuff it full of snow, and let it sinter. It takes a couple of hours, so stuff it until you can't stuff anymore, leave it for a couple of hours, and then tip it upside down and use spoons to carve, and you'll make the most beautiful snow sculptures with kids. Or make snow mandalas, where you take something like a dish and you place some interesting colored twigs or leaves or whatever you can find in the winter, let it freeze, and then place it in a tree and hang it up as a decoration. One of my favorite activities in the spring is to take a clothespin and write a child's name on it. And just before a leaf unfurls, You clip it on that bud. Come back every day and watch how quickly it unfurls. Take a picture of it every day, and a child will be amazed at that. And you can also, believe it or not, if you're near sugar maples, hear the sap rise. Pick a tree that's no more than 8 to 10 inches in diameter, and on a day where it's sunny and you know that the sap is running, place a stethoscope right on the outside and you'll hear it gurgle and pop. And Jade is telling me I have how much time? 1 minute. So I'm going to zoom right to the very end here. There was so much more I wanted to show you. However, my apologies. I always try to cram in more than I should. Many of these activities you can find out in my 2 books called The Big Book of Nature Activities, which I wrote with my friend Drew Monkman, and The Book of Nature Connection, which talks about sensory activities that deepen our connection to nature. And more recently, as Jade alluded to, The Wild Path Home, how communities together can give kids stewardship experiences through each age and phase of their development. So we raise kids who really care for the earth. And that, I'm afraid, is all the time I have. I'm sorry I gave maybe too much, but
Never too much. Never too much. That's a Luther Dandross song that I love. Never too much, Jacob. And the messages of people, no, we want more. Okay, we're going to have, I'm hoping Jacob might come back for our winter workshops as well, because he has so many great winter resources, and maybe another course if you missed Jacob's 4-part course before. So I haven't actually demanded that of you yet, Jacob. Anyway, I'll talk to you afterwards.
I'm always game.
Every time that we spend time together, and some of these I've done and some of them I haven't, and it just sparks so much joy. I really, really appreciate all the effort you make to connect children to nature. You're magical. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay, it's last but most certainly not least. Ian, one of my most favourite educators of all time, incredible nature journalist, co-presenter of the Earthly Chats podcast that we do together. And if you are looking for a yang to my yin, and the deep, delicious baritone of radio voice, then Ian is the one. You have done so much in your life, but you are a certified teacher. You're the general editor of Green Teacher magazine. You've designed curriculums. You've done a bit of off-desk voice acting, and you were a parks interpreter for many, many, many years. And you do so much project coordination for us of all different things at the Outdoor Learning School and Store. It is the greatest pleasure to get to hang out with you. It's always a treat, and so thank you so much for being here, Ian.
Thank you very much, Jade, and thank you, James and Jacob. Everybody's name starts with J except for me, and I is right beside J. So take from that what you will. But no, it's always great to jump on and contribute to these fascinating and inspiring discussions. And I too would like to read back over the chat box, because it is very much like a waterfall of awesome, great ideas, lots of gratitude flowing through there. Unlike our first 2 presenters, I have not written any books yet, perhaps. However, I have served as the gatekeeper, so to speak, of publishing articles, as well as special magazine issues of Green Teacher, which has now been folded into the Outdoor Learning School and Store, and I'm overseeing all of the Green Teacher resources, which I will delve into in our brief time together today. So as Jade mentioned, I cut my teeth in the park system. I'm based in Ontario, so the provincial park system, Ontario Parks, which does have quite a strong interpretive program. It varies so much depending on the geographic area, but I've been very blessed to be in a system where there was a lot of training. I got to work with a lot of wonderful people, and I'm still very much connected to really all of the main people who are stakeholders with Ontario Parks. So I am just going to do a quick screen share here and share my very brief PowerPoint deck. So this is the closest park to where I am based, Presqu'île Provincial Park, right on the north shore of Lake Ontario. It's Williams Treaty territory, and this is one of the interpretive trails. And this was actually the second park officially in the Ontario Park system. And this boardwalk cutting through the Class 1 wetland has gone through many iterations, much of it reconstructed through volunteer labor. This is me in a not recent picture. Doing interpretation in parks, it's who I am, it's what I do. It's where I feel most at home and comfortable doing the interpretation. And yeah, as I say, not a picture taken yesterday by any stretch. And just for a bit of context, where I am, you can see just in kind of the right-hand side of the circular area, a little boot-shaped peninsula, and that is Presqu'île Park. It is a sand spit. It's actually a very interesting geological formation called a tombolo for any geology geeks out there. Jade, looking at you. It's one of the greatest examples of a tombolo on the planet. And that is one of the interpretive themes, which is a core part of the entire Ontario park system. Every park and conservation area is based around a set of interpretive themes. You could think of them as the raison d'etre, or the reason why this park is protected and is of educational and interpretive value. So certainly the uniqueness of this park as one of the great examples of a tombolo in the whole world is something that we always had to highlight in my interpretation at that park. Another one of those interpretive themes is migration, specifically of birds and monarch butterflies. So right now, still a few monarchs flying. There's actually a couple days ago, a caterpillar was on a milkweed in our garden. And I was like, okay, you better get cooking because it's getting a little chilly in the evenings where I am, right around 0 degrees Celsius. So we wish that caterpillar the very best en route to Mexico. So migration is a really big part of the experience at Presqu'île Park. Part of it is geography and part of it is geology. Because it's on the North Shore of Lake Ontario, Presqu'île is one of the first points that northbound creatures get to when they're crossing the lake from the south. It's the first point of land because it's sticking out south from the mainland. And then at this time of the year, as species are going south, it's like a funnel. It's the last point of land that they leave. So both during the northbound and the southbound migration, you get these wonderful congregations of mostly migratory birds and insects like monarch butterflies and some of the dragonflies like green darners and black saddlebags. So this was really my bailiwick at the park, was leading these hikes and interpretive programs that were based on migration. And what you soon learn is that there is a lot to learn about the various species that are migrating. So just to give you some context in numbers, just looking at birds, big, prominent, animate vertebrates. When we think of all the different taxa, all the different types of species, birds certainly are, you could argue, the most in our face. They're everywhere. They're all around. You see them everywhere. They're big enough that they catch your attention more than some insects do. This is generalizing. Some people do notice the insects more than the birds, but generally speaking, line of best fit, birds are just always kind of in your face. So getting to know your local birds is a great thing to do. Now, again, thinking of context, if you do this great little strategy on iNaturalist where you draw a little square around a specific geographic area, if you have a lot of time on your hands, this is a great thing to do. If you don't have a lot of time in your hands, this is a terrible thing to do, because then you will use up all of the limited time you have everywhere in the world. What does Eastern Vietnam look like? Let's just check out the butterfly, and you could just go and go and go. So this is a little iNaturalist square around Presqu'île Provincial Park. So very handy. You can look at what is the iNaturalist biodiversity profile of Presqu'île. Now, this is not perfect. iNaturalist is based on photos, so there are some species that are famously difficult to photograph. Jacob had that picture of the snowy tree cricket. There's one in our garden. Damned if we can get a photo of it. They're very small. They're green. The leaves are green. You can see them sometimes, but they're very hard to get pictures of. So there are a lot of species that are very common, but they're not captured in iNaturalist just because they're hard to get a picture of. But it's still a great starting point. However, if you look just at the very top center there, 3,326 species have been photographed in this little tiny park that's about 9 square kilometers, about 900 hectares. It's very small. It barely registers on the map. and it has over 3,000 species, and that's only the ones that have been photographed and identified. So you can easily double that number. And this is not a tropical area. This is 44 degrees north, so about halfway between the equator and the North Pole, just under the halfway mark. So, imagine doing this in the Amazon rainforest, Florida, anywhere where there's, tropical, subtropical area where there's greater biodiversity. So, very daunting. However, what I always recommend, and people who know me, I'm a bit of a broken record with this. I say, don't worry about the full biodiversity profile of your area. Get to know the species that you see most often. For example, this past weekend, long weekend, Canadian Thanksgiving, was out with my family, and certainly we didn't see over 3,000 species, even though a lot of species are migrating through right now. A lot of the flowers are still in bloom, the late season flowers. Most of what we saw were repeats. We saw probably 24 white-throated sparrows, probably 10 different blue jays, 3 or 4 chickadees, a flock of, I don't know, maybe 50 red-winged blackbirds and common grackles flew over. So if, say, just for the sake of argument and round numbers, say we saw 300 individual animals or individual birds, just to be more specific, most of them, like 80% of those 300 individuals we saw, were like 10 species. So you don't have to get to know all 300 bird species, 330 bird species that have been seen in Presque Isle Provincial Park. Get to know, your top 10, your top 20. You can break this down in any number of ways. You can do it by season, you can do it by habitat. What are your 10 most common water birds? What are your 10 most common forest birds? And then take this on to other taxa. Take this to insects, and you can do this with iNaturalist. If you go in the upper right-hand corner, you see that little button filter. Filter it out depending on taxon. So for this, I filtered it for insects, and you can also organize it based on the number of observations. So there you see, top left, monarch butterfly, the most observations. Now again, part of that is because they're big, they're pretty, they're easy to photograph. Butterflies are famously easy to photograph because they always land, they spread their wings out. You can get wonderful pictures. Bumblebees, same thing. They land on the flowers, great subjects for pictures. So just look at, what is your top 10? And you can further filter in iNaturalist based on month. So what are your top 10 most common insects in May? What are the top 10 most common insects in October? And just get your top 10, your top 20 of each of the common taxa. And if you can get those under your belt, if you see anything, outside the quote unquote top 10 or top 20, then you can do some research and you can do co-learning with your learners. What are you observing? What does it sound like? What does it look like? Use iNaturalist as a reference point. Or one of the things I really recommend, and we have these at the Outdoor Learning store, the Waterford Press nature booklets. They're based on geographic area. They're based on taxon. There's some like pond life. Those are great ones to have. These ones, it's a Rocky Mountain nature set. Here's an Arctic one. Open it up. These wonderful illustrations. I wish there were belugas in my immediate vicinity, but fresh water and all that. I just swallowed a fly, like actually live on camera, but we all need our protein. These illustrations are terrific. And again, you get to know your top 10, your top 20, your top 30 of what's in your geographic area. I actually did swallow that fly. Anyways, continuing on here, the show must go on. Also, just wanted to very briefly mention the Green Teacher Resource Bank. I know we're running out of time, so I'll just unshare screen and reshare so that I can show you the Green Teacher Resource Bank super quickly, because I know we have to wrap up and we want to get to questions and all of that good stuff. So here we go, sharing again. So if you just go to our website, outdoorlearning.com, go to Discover Us, scroll down, Green Teacher Resources. You can get individual subscriptions or your organization, school board, school district, nonprofit organization. You can get those. And when you subscribe, you get a passphrase, and then you have full access to articles, which you can search. So if you just search with a keyword like biodiversity, and then boom, all of the articles related to biodiversity pop up. These are articles combined with lesson outlines. Very adaptable, very practical. The whole point of Green Teacher is for it to be readily usable immediately. So there is a video tour. It's like a 1-minute video tour. If you just go to the Green Teacher page on outdoorlearning.com, check out the video tour, you get a sense of what the resource bank looks like. Check it out. There's lots of great stuff, like 500, 600 pieces in there. And we're almost out of time, so I shall wrap there. But get to know your local creatures, as Jacob mentioned. If you name something, it calls out to you. Get to know the most common creatures. Thank you for your time.
Oh, Ian, thank you so much. And there are so many phenomenal resources through that Green Teacher. And it's so lovely. There's so many different perspectives, folks who wrote those articles or layers to it. And it's really interesting if you're looking to build your own teaching practice and see how other people have interacted with the world. It can be a really beautiful way to get yourselves out there. Okay, friends, I'm going to make us all into a gallery. I'm going to remove the spotlight from just you and I, Ian. Bring all our friends back into the room. Okay, we have 1 minute for a question each. Ian, I'm going to start with you because the question's coming in. What age do you think, or age is, do you think the co-learning is the best for? Because you mentioned that, right? So a lot of folks, when I moved to Canada, I knew lots of deciduous trees from Southeast England. And I came here and it's all coniferous trees. And quite honestly, for the first few years, they all looked the same. It was very difficult. And sometimes they're so big, you can't see the cones or you can't really get up to it. So it took me a while. And what I've realized was that I could just say with my kids, I actually don't know the answer. Let's try and idea it together. But what age can you start doing that?
Yeah, so you can definitely do it at any age. It's just the approach you take while you're doing it. So you might have to do some scaffolding in terms of guiding questions. So you use the example of spruce trees, white spruce, Engelmann spruce. They're pretty similar. So the key is adding these guiding questions like, okay, what do we notice about the different parts of the tree? What do we notice about the bark? What do we notice about the leaves? What, color, shape, texture, smell, everything. And then what can we deduce based on that? Now, older learners will be able to you just say, try to figure out why it has that. Now, with younger learners, you might have to say, okay, so it has needles, pointy needles. Why do you think they're pointy? Why wouldn't they be flat? Now, the bark is very flaky. Why do you think the bark is flaky? Let's take a look let's peel some of the bark. Oh, there's some insects underneath it. What else do you think lives on here? This is the spiral of inquiry. What else lives on here? Oh, we see some holes in it. Okay, so there's insects under the bark and there's holes in it. So what kind of bird made it? Oh, woodpeckers, they put holes in trees. How does a woodpecker perch on this tree? Is there space on the trunk? The spiral of inquiry can get very long and loopy very quickly, but yeah, you have to add a lot more guiding questions with really younger learners. But with older learners, maybe add 1 or 2 guiding questions and just say, okay, you're on your own, go figure it out. So it's just all the language you use, but you can totally do it with any age, 100%.
That's so beautiful. And I feel like that really models that vulnerability of an educator, of us not being up on a pedestal and recognizing that we're all continuously learning together. Talking of which, Jacob, thank you, Ian. In your pathways, you really focus on these
Landmarks.
landmarks. Thank you, is the word I was looking for. I need a snack. These landmarks of development. And in what ways do you think is super important to connect to age appropriate things? Because we've got some people doing high school here and we're doing like ears like this, but I have done a adaptive version of that for high schoolers to look at physics and different things. But how important is that, and what can the book share with you about that?
Yeah, so the Wild Path Home walks people through different things that kids can do for the age that they are. That's more likely to activate a sense of caring for the earth. So little kids, it's the idea of promoting sensory awareness. And for older kids, it's maybe gardening. And for older high school kids, getting involved in local projects that they can rehabilitate something that's been damaged. But the ethic is it starts right where you stand, because you can make that place, your schoolyard, your backyard, even your balcony, better. That's the place you have agency. And that's where we have to start. starts with loving the land and then translating into action, doing something positive for the land. And eventually, if that love is there, it'll grow outward towards the community, towards the province, towards the world. It's concentric circles of caring.
Phenomenal. So important. Thank you so much. And James, just to close us off, so I'd mentioned about people having access to parks and things, and there are some resources. Again, I've already got them ready to share with people in the page. But how much of a resource is the park itself? If a few folks had said, "Oh, we're a bit far away," like, can you translate the things within your book into, let's say, a community or a schoolyard or a community around a schoolyard?
Yeah, that's a really fantastic question, because we do know that there are that access is still a barrier, even if it isn't the greatest one. And if you live 2+ hours on a bus away from a national park, are you just out of luck when it comes to a lot of the strategy? Well, I think that the things that Jacob and Ian were sharing, especially, you could do those anywhere. You can do those in a green space. You could do those in a schoolyard. You could do those in, like, like a median that's next to a school or abutting a piece of land. There's no place that those couldn't be done. And while and even if, for example, you can't go to the places that I described, or you don't live in, you live in the US or you live in Canada, those resources are still there, and those principles, they still apply no matter where you are. There's actually a great, to kind of plug another resource, there's a great event going on right now from the National Writing Project called Write Out, which is just encouraging people to go outside and to use the outdoors as a source of inspiration to write. And literally, it doesn't matter where you are. If your school is next to a golf course, go out to the golf course. If your school is abuts like a drainage area, the creek runs through, use that. I mean, the elementary school that my kiddo goes to abuts a cemetery, which sounds bananas, but like, think of how amazing the the Halloween spooky stories you could have kids write if they were sitting around the green space, respectfully sitting around the green space of a cemetery, for example. There really isn't a place that can go. You can take the ideas that are presented and you can transpose them to the green space that you have access to. And it doesn't matter where you are, and you could be in a densely populated urban area. You could be out in the rural space where all of the land is fenced in and all of the land seems to be kind of cut off. These places they can work anywhere. And so I think that the hardest thing, honestly, is taking that first step. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like I just got about 100. I couldn't even keep up with the number of ideas that were being shared here. And that's not even like if you happen to go and you buy one of the books that somebody's written, or get the subscription that Ian was talking about. I mean, I think you'd be challenged not to find a first step that you could apply and create great connections with.
I love that. And yeah, it's so distracting because I love listening, and the chat is just people saying, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh thank you so much, so thoughtful, so much to offer." And I really like someone had said, I've written down, it starts where you stand. And wherever you are, and like you were talking about birds, Ian, in a park, but we see birds in really urban environments. They're one of the things that we might see most of. And it all matters and it all has value. And we have a different range of more pedagogical, practical, activity-based, project-based ideas there for you. So I hope you found something to take with you today, friends. We hope you join us for another learning opportunity. Recording will be up by 12 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, along with your follow-up email with links to get your certificate and things. James, Jacob, Ian, phenomenal humans who give so much into this space and who really care about being us. Rachel, thank you for doing all of the work behind the scenes to keep us all connected here. And look, people are asking to connect with you. So what I'll do is in that follow-up email, if you want to be connected with one of the presenters, just hit reply and we'll make sure you get connected, or we'll make sure there's access to their website so they can connect with you directly. It's the greatest honor of my life to host spaces where we do this work. Thank you so much for bringing joy to me today on this Tuesday, and we'll see you next week to learn about science, and I get to talk about all my science things, so hopefully you'll join us then. Have a wonderful
And
evening.
I'm hosting. I've never done that
Oh my gosh, yes
before.
you are! And I get to Oh my gosh, and I'll just sit there like, hey, waiting patiently for my turn. We'll see. Appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.
Thank you.